Now we know the conversation around electric vehicles is buzzing, or it is a huge conversation around the importance of it for the future. But how far is the government pushing for, investment, or research and development into this industry? Now, for people to understand how important the future of transport or electric vehicles is, I'm going to show you a couple of videos now, but after I'm going to be showing you, I'm going to be discussing with you how far, people have, if people have a clear plan to reach electric vehicle targets in the future. I mean, is it that, or, has the government come to a point where there's more priorities in terms of GDP recovery or tourism recovery, things like exports and imports, logistics? Are these not the priority yet? And talking about the target. So I'm going to quickly brief you on this. I want you to stay tuned. This is the buzz. I'm talking to you on everything business, tech, entrepreneurship. My name is Tim, and I'm going to be briefing you on all this right throughout the day. Now, when it comes to the conversation around electric vehicles, how far are we, going to target for increased sales, or in the government, how far is the government actually looking at increasing the amount of market with the electric vehicles? So stay tuned here on the buzz. I'm going to be running you quickly through what is actually going to go on in terms of numbers, in terms of incentives, all that. Anything you need to know. I want you to feel free to comment, like, share, subscribe on this channel, and let me know what your thoughts are. Stay tuned. That's right. So this is Relax Radio. I'm your host, Tim. I'm with you all the way till 3 p.m., talking to you about electric vehicles, what's happening in the market. Now, to break down the conversation around how, when it comes to sales in the UK, the ministers have published no clear plan as such, but the House of Commons public have spoken about how they are not convinced that the government has sufficiently thought through how to expand critical electric vehicle charging infrastructure, or things like that, even at the pace that is required. Now we know that charging stations plays a big impact on how much of electric vehicles are sold, because people doing long distance trips do not trust this as yet. I mean, that is going to take, I'd say, another year or two to convince people about how there are different vehicles coming into the market, explaining how things can push for a brighter future or a greener future, right? For that, so talking about the last year's government and how they had brought a plan to bring forward a ban on the sale of new petrol and diesel vehicles by the next 10 to 20, 10 years to 2030 as a part of its green industrial revolution plan. I mean, I can't wait. Me personally, I can't wait to tell people that I was a part of an industry. Maybe tell young generations of that I was a part of a conversation where when electric vehicles are in majority, I'm going to be saying how the conversation even with Elon Musk or the conversation with the private entities have come to a point where they've pushed for electric vehicles, and they actually involved or introduced the governments to the possibilities that they could actually wrap around these opportunities. So to add to it, now there is an 11% of a new registration last year that has been a huge challenge, but to raise this to 100% in the last 14 years has been this goal. Now, the chief executive of Industry Trade Group. Now, this is Mike Hawes, right? He's talking about how the automotive industry shares the government's ambition for electric revolution. However, they need the comprehensive and holistic plan to get them there. Now, there is a big goal, there is a big target in the lines of where they can or they need to push for multiple economic goals, but then this plan needs to convince consumers to make the switch. It needs to incentivize them. It needs to financially convince them that it is going to be worth the investment from switching from, I'd say, petrol or diesel fuel vehicles to electric. Now, this plan, like the House of Commons has spoken about, they said that the ministers have not really focused much attention on, and the problem to access these electric vehicle chargers is a big issue when converting all these to sales. Now, the data from the English Housing Association suggests that a third of households in the UK have not got driveways, and this rises to 68% of social in housing inhabitants. So, talking about the 78% of more supermarkets or the motorways that have been concentrating on the reports. The big read is basically talking about how there is a solid case for next generation batteries, but I mean, I'd say we are still in a young phase in this conversation. So the UK has basically more than 23,000 charging stations, and this is in more than 15,000 locations. Now this is the UK alone, but talking about how the Royal Dutch Shell, that's ubiquity and how the coverage is patchy. There will nearly 40%, 44% of charging points in southeast, right? And then the MPs were, concerned that some of the industries or consumers are not convinced that electric vehicles are suitable yet to alternate for petrol or diesel vehicles, and they say that the prices are still too high for many. So, the Hiller or questioning, the questioning, the conversation is that, that the questioning is that the Department for Transport and how they've basically highly ambiguously spoken about a world-leading approach to increasing the uptake of zero-emission cars and making this in an area that will help to change climate targets. Now, this is a whole, I'd say, a holistically hopeful way to talk about this whole conversation, but I mean, things like, I'm actually going to be talking to you now about approaches that other governments or even Europe has basically in whole taken to helping people understand or convincing people to push for electric vehicles. So stay tuned here. I'm going to be showing you a couple of these tips on how governments are convincing people. But right after these videos, I'm going to be answering your questions. Feel free to comment here and let me know what your take is on these conversations. So I'll be right back with you in a minute. That is right, UK. So talking about how the the governments are looking at pushing for a positive future. Now incentives are being pushed in the lines of less costly or free parking to zero electric customers or car riders, and then talking about these gates to the tollways, right? Now the tickets in these are also going to be discounted, or even when it comes to banks, governments are discussing to reduce the interest rates for anyone that is looking at buying these on a loan. So these are the cool ways. I mean, I'm looking at a positive future in the lines of how governments are pushing for a greener future and increasing the transportation sector in a positive manner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be telling you more about the conversations around tourism. And now the numbers there, I'll be diving deeper into this on the next show. I want you to stay tuned on the buzz. This is Relax Radio, and you know how to get to us. It's 07852 473 473. You can WhatsApp, you can call, you can let me know anytime that you wanna get in touch, and feel free to comment on our videos. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because if you don't, you might miss out some of the cool content that we actually put out. And the best way to stay in line with what is happening in the real world is to subscribe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be talking to you more about the tourism sector and how you can actually push for a more greener future through the tourism sector when it comes to investing in electric vehicles, when it comes to sharing transport, all these topics. So stay tuned. I'm going to be right back with you on Relax Radio.